So, according to YouTube, this is the 100th video to be uploaded to this channel. And so, because of that, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I like the celebratory, videos to be ones that I wouldn't necessarily have done otherwise, ones that kind of fit with that sort of theme. With this is a video celebrating a milestone the channel has achieved, and for me, doing 100 of anything is a milestone. And well, what's one thing that I think stands out about my channel that maybe others don't is, well, my drawings, the thumbnails and stuff that I do. And I wanted to talk about that because every once in a while, I think it's really important to go back and analyze my art and how I've learned. And I thought it would be fun to turn this particular analyzing session into a video in the hopes that, hey, maybe this might help some people out. So ultimately, hey, I'm a Vanguard YouTuber. If you're watching this video, chances are you already know who I am, but if you don't, I do episode reviews and videos giving my opinions of CardFight Vanguard, mainly the anime, but a little bit of the card game here and there. And one of the things that I do is I'm an artist too, or at the very least I'm trying to become one. When making this channel, I wanted to take advantage of that, and I got the idea of kind of putting my art in my thumbnails. This way I was encouraged to draw every time that I upload a video. That way I kind of improve as a YouTuber and an artist at the same time, hand in hand. And so in this particular analyzing session, in this particular video, I'm going to be going over specifically Rekka, because by narrowing it down as much as possible, we kind of learn more because we don't get overwhelmed. And that's my first piece of advice. Narrow it down. It's easier to learn when you actually have less to learn from. I know that sounds weird, but just choose something specifically. And if you're someone who's into Vanguard, then there's an amazing resource online specifically for learning Vanguard that you won't believe. And I'll put it down in the description. It's the Japanese Vanguard website, because quite literally, if you'll see here, they upload the official character designs for their characters. Yeah, seriously, here in front of me right now I have the official reboot era character design for Rekka, and this is literally the thing that the anime is working on the show used to draw the character with. This is the reference image. This is the thing that's specifically built to teach other people how to draw the character on model. So there's my first piece of advice right out the gate. If you want to learn how to draw, you gotta learn from someone who also knows how to draw. It's really that simple. If you want to learn how to draw Vanguard characters, literally just go to the official JP website where they have images of the official character designs for all of the characters. It sounds simple, but a lot of artists get overwhelmed with trying to make their own things and trying to do original stuff that they kind of forget about this step entirely. If you want to learn how to draw, you first have to learn from someone else. That's the first step. The first step is trying to replicate someone else's style. And the second step is teaching yourself to learn on your own, I guess. It's like the moment when the robot becomes sentient. Robots first start off by kind of taking orders from their masters, but then there's the moment in every sci-fi movie ever where they suddenly become sentient and start learning on their own. And that's what you want to reach as an artist, whilst also using reference hand in hand. Never let anyone tell you that using reference and looking at other people's art as you draw is bad, because trust me, the sooner you let yourself look at other people's art, the better. There's the official Rekka character design for the reboot era. Take advantage of this. You're stupid not to, basically. So now we're gonna go to this image from 2016. In this image, all the way back from 2016, I still have the Asterisk logo there. That was a thing that I've had for a while now. I've really clung on to the Asterisk thing for a while. It's a reference to Bleach, by the way. The first Bleach opening theme is called Asterisk. I thought it was a cool sounding word, and it was the thing that got me into anime. It was one of the many things that got me into anime, and I felt like it was a good representative, I guess. It doesn't actually really mean anything, you know, it's just a cool thing. And the actual Asterisk logo thing is just such a cool, like, simple but recognizable thing. I think it works as a logo. But yeah, so this is an image, this is a drawing of Rekka I did in 2016. This is one of her outfits from the movie Neon Messiah. At around about this time, I was watching Link Joker. And 2016 may sound like a long time ago, but to me, it kind of blinked by. One of the things you won't really realize about art is as you improve, a lot of the time you don't even realize you've improved. That's why it's important to have these kinds of sessions where you kind of just sit down and analyze your own work to make sure that you are actually going in the direction that you want to be. Because, like I said, the most important thing, other than references, is the idea that you are training your brain to learn on its own. A lot of people think, a lot of like beginner artists seem to think that the most important thing with art is to kind of learn how to draw with your hands, when in actuality, I think the skill of your hands specifically, and like, you know, training your hands to like hold and move the pencil properly, I don't really think that's as important as a lot of beginners seem to convince themselves that it is. I think it's actually more important to kind of train your brain into figuring out how to draw. Like, learning how to draw is more something that your brain learns than something that your hand learns, if you know what I mean. Because I know a lot of people relate with this issue, where basically they want to draw something and they think of something in their head that they want to draw, and they struggle actually getting it down on paper, because when they try to actually think about how it would work logistically and how to actually draw the thing that's in their head, the details suddenly get fuzzy and they don't really know how to replicate it. And one, that's why it's important to use reference, because reference physically shows you what it would look like. And two, it really is important to kind of train your brain into picking up this stuff. And I think this drawing I did of Rekka in 2016 is a really good example of that, because I have it here next to my most recent Rekka drawing that I did, because it's a really good comparison to kind of just pick apart what I've learned in that time. To pick out a lot of things that have changed here, I think the biggest problem with this one on the left is actually the uncanny valley that I accidentally created using the proportions of Rekka here. The proportions are all off, and the proportions are just, you know, how big everything is in comparison to each other. For example, the easiest thing to point out here are the size of her eyes in comparison to the rest of her face and head. Her eyes are massive here, and that's something that every artist beginning off does. They go, well, you know, it's anime, gotta draw the big old eyes, but they're actually not as big as you think they are. And the cool thing about art is learning these little tips as you go and trying to follow them. One rule of thumb I've learned that's done me pretty well a lot of the time is the idea that the space between the two eyes is actually the size of an eye, and as you can see here, you would not be able to fit another eye in between these two, but on this one you'd have a better job of it. It's still not great, but I think it works better. The important thing is to know the rules, because once you know the rules, you can kind of find ways of hiding the fact that you haven't followed them better, if you know what I mean. Because of course, when you're stylizing an image, you want to throw out specific rules. For example, here on this hand, I really hate this hand and arm and like the other arms on this 2016 Rekka, because they're too realistic. I kind of went out of my way to try and draw like the individual, I guess, muscles and everything, and try to really make it realistic, because I felt that the more realistic I make it and everything, the faster I'll learn. When in actuality, the key to doing something like this is actually simplifying it. It's to stylize it so that it all looks like one uniform look. There's one thing I was to point out specifically about the Rekka on the left and right that makes the one on the right work and the one on the left not work. I mean, there's a lot of things, but the biggest thing would be that uniform sort of stylization that's gone all across it. Everything just fits together for the most part. Everything looks like it belongs to one cohesive image. It's kind of believable. When you're making art, you're kind of trying to trick people who look at its mind into believing that it's a thing that exists, you know, even if it is something obviously wouldn't exist. And so the best way of doing that isn't actually by giving fake realism to the images, like on this one on the left where I draw the arms weirdly and I give her like fingernails on this one hand and everything, but instead actually to stylize it so that it all looks uniform. Like, again, despite the fact that this one on the right is far more simple and has far less details to it, it actually looks better. And that's something that artists can really fall into as well, as the idea that the more detail they put into a drawing and the more that time they spend on it, the better it automatically is. And I highly disagree with that. Now, don't get me wrong, it all depends on the art style specifically. But I think if you're starting off, it can be good to try and stick to a sort of simplistic style anyway, and learn details as you go, kind of focus on each element individually as you progress. Maybe go, oh, I'm doing this drawing, so I'm going to focus on the hair. I'm doing this drawing, I'm going to focus on hands. I'm doing this drawing, I'm going to focus, and so on and so forth. Because if you try and kind of take it all on at once, it can become overwhelming. It can be difficult to actually take any of it in because you're just taking in so much at once. So it's important to kind of pace yourself. Like, again, it's 3.5 years between these two drawings, and to me it doesn't feel like it, but I mean, if you look at these two drawings, you can definitely see 3 years worth of progress. So the proportions and everything are all wrong, that goes without saying. But another thing is, yeah, the color palette is off. I have a different drawing of Rekka in this outfit that I'll get up later that really shows just the power of having a good color palette. And again, if you're doing like a Vanguard character or something where you have official character designs, just steal it. Honestly, just steal it. Just steal the official colors. I think for this one on the left, I like tried to replicate the colors by hand. Whereas this one on the right actually was an outfit I made myself. This isn't an outfit that Rekka's ever worn before, but because I've drawn Rekka so many times before and drawn her in other already existing outfits, I've kind of gained the confidence to start taking creative liberties with it. And so even though, like, with, you know, the blazer jacket and the sweater and the skirt and everything, that's stuff that she doesn't usually wear, I've still gotten so used to drawing her that I can put her in different clothes and still have it fit, if you know what I mean. So yeah, learn how to do the stuff on the left, basically, before you try doing the stuff on the right, I guess. I feel like the rest of the problems with this one here on the left kind of speak for itself. One thing I do quite find funny, and again, this kind of ties into my point about learning to draw is about teaching your brain into to pick up things and learn things that you wouldn't usually. For example, one rule of thumb to think about is the idea that the less comfortable someone is, the smaller the pupil of their eye gets in comparison to their iris, right? So the black part in the middle of the eye, when it's small compared to the colored part on the outside, that means they're uncomfortable. Whereas if the pupil is big compared to the iris, that means they'd be like, I guess, in love or happy or something. And so because of that, accidentally, on this one on the left, if you look at the eyes, she actually looks really like shocked or uncomfortable, I guess, whereas the one on the right, she looks normal. And when you compare the small pupils with the giant irises with like the generic smile and the eyebrows that don't really emote anything, you kind of just get left with this very, again, I know I say this a lot, but it's very uncanny looking. It doesn't convey anything, and that sucks because the point in art is to convey something, right? On this one on the right here, this newer one, if you told me, what is this conveying? You can go, oh, you know, it's Rekka. She's doing a pose, like an idol pose. She's very kind of relaxed. She's kind of arching herself forward. And she's got this expression that tells you that she's kind of playing up, that she's acting very excited and happy, and she's acting, well, like you'd expect an idol to act. Like she's got the one eye closed and a smile, and you know, like you can imagine a scenario in your head where Rekka would do this, where this image would actually exist within a context, even though it doesn't have a background or anything. This one here, you don't see it. You don't really see any scenario where Rekka would be doing this pose and this exact expression unless she was specifically told to, you know? And again, another thing too is Rekka's hair. That's one of the reasons I draw her so much, is because her hair is just so fascinating to me because it's so different. And on the one on the left, it just looks very unnatural. It just looks like cylinders hanging off of the side of her face. whereas on the one on the right, it's kind of drooping down a lot more naturally, and it just feels like it exists. And again, I think it's most noticeable on the hair, the importance to have a good color scheme. This is Reboot Rekka. Next to the character design, I think it's good to have this next to the character design because it really shows you the differences. This character design on the right is what she's supposed to look like, and then the one on the left is the one I drew. I didn't have her poncho thing because I just didn't really like it at the time. I thought it was very awkward. I thought it covered up a lot. In hindsight, could have probably kept with keeping it. You can very much see too from the legs specifically and like the way I did the feet that this was the reference image I used back then. You know, like I very much tried to replicate it, but I did do her in a different pose, so that's good. So that's another piece of advice I give you. If you wanted to learn and everything, you know, actually change it from the reference image. Don't just draw the reference image exactly, maybe borrow parts of it and use it to make sure that the drawing is like on model, so to say. But you also want to change up the pose and everything a little bit. I did, the hands are different and this one arm is up. I usually draw Rekka with like the one arm down and the one arm up because that seems to be a very traditional sort of idol thing that they do, and it's a very easy to draw pose as well. So here the colors are a lot better, but if you can probably tell, it's because I more closely borrowed the colors from an actual reference image. And you may think that's cheating, but in actuality, well, it looks better and it's easier for me to do, so why not? Sometimes doing art is about working smart rather than hard. It's about just going, this is what the actual Vanguard animators do. They do just borrow the exact same color scheme from the character design image they're using, so why not just take it? And hell, again, it looks better than the previous drawing I did anyway. So hell, why not? You know, just do it. So I think with this one, I overcompensated with the eyes, where I made the eyes too small. Previously they were too big, now they're too small. I'd say the expression, if anything, has kind of gotten worse because I very obviously tried to cheat it. I realized that the expression didn't look very good and that it wasn't really conveying anything, so I very cheekily just added a tongue sticking out to try and kind of fake the illusion of an expression, and it doesn't work, and if anything it makes it look even more uncanny. And because the tongue is sticking out, I put the mouth too high up to kind of give the tongue room to fit, but I don't know why I did that in retrospect. And also the hands are too small. General rule of thumb is you want the hands to be around about the same size as the face, but these are way too small. Again, some give and take when you're stylizing the characters can work, but this is too much. I don't hate it, actually. You know, I think this is alright. Again, this was very much a kind of direct study from the character design image, and I think it works fine. And if you recognize this image, it'll be because I used it for my Vanguard English dub video, which I guess I'll link down below. This is another Neon Messiah outfit. Rekka gets given, I think, 2 new outfits in Neon Messiah, and I like both of them, so this is the other one. And I think genuinely the thing that really carries this drawing is the design. I think this is one of Rekka's better outfits that she's gotten. You can see that with the previous image, I kind of try to copy the character designs, like one foot straight forward and the other one to the side, and it didn't really work on that image. It made it look like she had a twisted ankle. Here, I fixed that quite considerably. That works a lot better, and I think the way I did the legs looks fine. They look alright. One of my biggest gripes with this drawing is I don't like how thick the line art is. I like having thinner line art. I don't really love this one. Again, if you look at the face, it's not really emoting or expressing anything. You can see I've got the kind of closed eye and the smile, which I also do here, which is why this image is such a good like reference. What makes it work on the one on the right is the fact that one, the eye is a lot thicker and curved. If it's closed and curved, then it makes it look like she's happy. And her mouth is kind of wider open, whereas here it's not open at all. If you want your expressions to really pop and be more noticeable, you want to have that mouth open if you can. You can see that she's got one of her hands behind her back. And fun fact, if any artist does that, it's because they didn't want to draw the other hand. So there you go. So we're going back to this one for a sec because I remembered something I wanted to talk about with this one that I didn't, and that's the line art. So with the line art, I wanted to make the line art all the same size. I wanted it to be very consistent. I wanted the lines to all be the same width and everything. So I used a tool that did that. But because of that, it means that none of the lines taper off. None of them end sharply. They all end very bluntly and they don't get any thinner or thicker throughout. And naively, I thought that's how it's supposed to look. That's how anime art always looks. But it doesn't actually, because if we go back to the official character design, you can see that the lines do actually get a little bit thinner and a little bit thicker. It's subtle, because it's supposed to be subtle. You're not really supposed to notice it. The sign of it being done well is that you don't notice it. If we go back to this other drawing that I did recently, you'll see that I have that where like the lines get thicker and thinner throughout the line, and that gives the image a lot of energy. And that's another problem I have with this one on the left. This image on the left doesn't have any energy to it. It doesn't feel like it would exist. It doesn't exude anything. This one on the right has energy, and I think one of the things that gives it a lot of energy is the thick and thinness of the line art. That really helps, and the fact that it's barely noticeable unless you want to notice it is a good thing. That means I've done it well, basically. Unless you are specifically going for an art style where you want the line art changing size to be really noticeable, then go as over the top as you want with it, I guess. It's all about experimenting. So this is a drawing I did specifically to compare to the first drawing I did in 2016. It's one of the same outfit, actually. And just by looking at these two, you should hopefully see a lot of the areas I've improved, mainly the colors. I think my choice of colors and shading is better. I think this does a good job of demonstrating how the one on the left has shading on the hair that's like too dark, whereas here it's a little better. I still don't think it's my best, but I think it's a little better. Fringe still isn't great. I guess her bangs is what Americans call them, like the locks of hair on her forehead. I never really fully learned how to do Rekka's bangs. I think in the newest image I did, they look better, but I just kind of went at it with the thought process of just draw spikes until her forehead's covered. One thing I really don't like about this newer image here, the one on the right, is the pose sucks. This one I actually bothered to draw a background, which helps lends to the believability a lot. It makes it look like, you know, it could be a thing that exists because it has an actual context to it in the shape of a background. But the pose really kind of ruins that, because she's just kind of holding a card straight out to a side and looking at it very angrily, and I don't like that expression still. I'm not the best at expressions. That's not my strong suit. This face just really kind of, she's like got angry eyebrows, but she's got a smile, so it makes her look kind of, I guess, determined, but it doesn't really work in this context because she's just holding a one single card out. And so it's like, is she supposed to be card fighting, or is she supposed to be giving the card to someone? Like, I don't really get it. But other than that, what really saves this drawing is the shading. I have a better understanding of the proportions. Her body looks more feasible here. Still not perfect, still not really that good, but it's better. And I do quite like this one. Not as much as I should, I feel like, but I quite like it. Okay, so the next one is this one, and this one's only around about a year old. I think I included it in a thumbnail from a video from January of last year. So this one's a year old, and I think it's one of my worst ones, honestly, especially if you bear in mind how recent this one is. I think I rushed this one because I wanted to get the video out, and so I didn't really give myself as much time as usual to get this one done. And it shows the line art's just too thick, especially on the hair. I just don't really like how that looks. The expression, again, is just kind of shit. Once again, she's just kind of holding a card outstretched out. I really like this outfit, but I don't think I did the best job of like really kind of showing off why I like the outfit. The skirt doesn't look very good, and neither does like the kind of grey turtleneck thing that she's wearing. I think that could look better, and I just kind of rushed it. It's a very difficult outfit to draw, this one, and that's why I think this drawing just kind of suffers. I don't really have much to say about this one. It just doesn't really look very good. That's one of my least favorite ones. I think at least the earlier ones have a bit of charm to how bad they are, but that one just looks very kind of forgettable. This one has one major problem. This one is one I think I tried to make for like a video thumbnail, but I never ended up actually using it. My big problem with it is the two eyes. The eyes suck. They're too big. One of them's like too far in one direction, and the other one is like kind of in the middle. So it looks like she's kind of cockeyed, I guess. It just doesn't work. The color scheme's a lot better. You can see by this point I had gotten a lot better at color schemes. This one fits a context a little better. You know, you can actually kind of imagine maybe she's in the middle of a card fight, if you can imagine like the kind of table and stuff in front of her. if I could be bothered to draw that. So, you know, it's got a bit of a better context to it. I like that her hair is kind of moving with her, and same with her skirt. There's a bit of like kind of movement and energy to it. Again, the colors are much nicer. This one actually has really nice colors. It's just a shame that it's ruined by the face. I don't know what I was thinking when I did that face, but it sucks. It looks really bad. And now I'm gonna talk about this newer one some more, because I really like it. Every once in a while I'll do a drawing and I'll look at it and I'll go, wow, this one's like really good. I really like this one. And it doesn't usually last long. By the time I've done a couple more drawings, I'll go back to hating it again. But this one I really like, and for a lot of reasons. The proportions I really like, you know, I think everything is around about the right sizes of each other. There's one thing I started to nitpick. I'd say the arm that's upwards and doing the kind of peace sign, I think is a little too big, and make it a little smaller. Whereas the one on her waist is a much better size. You can see I've ditched doing the fingernails and everything entirely, but that helps with the stylization. Maybe I'll go back to trying to doing the fingernails later on or something, I don't know. But for now, I don't mind ditching them. It's very simple. There's very minimal shading. There's very minimal like wrinkles and stuff in the clothing, because it gives this very kind of clean look to it. One thing I do really like about this drawing is the makeup. Basically, the way the story goes is in episode 4 of the Shinemon arc, Mikuru. It's an important plot point of that episode that she wears makeup. Yeah, seriously. Wild anime, am I right? And so for the thumbnail drawing I wanted to do for that, I was like, well, I can't leave out the makeup because that's something they specifically comment upon. And up until that point, I'd never really drawn characters with makeup. And I ended up really liking how it looked, so ever since then I've just been kind of trying to look for excuses to draw characters in makeup. And so when I was doing this Rekka drawing, I was like, well, may as well give her makeup. And I think it's something that would fit Rekka anyway, because, you know, she's an idol and everything, so why wouldn't she? And I really like how it looks. She's got like a little bit on her cheeks. You can't really notice it, so I kind of did the 4 dashes to kind of accentuate it some more and make it look like she's blushing. You got the lipstick. Again, the important thing with the lipstick is that it's simplified. You can see that I just outright avoided the like kind of cleft in the lip, which is like the bit in the middle of the top lip where it kind of goes inwards. And I didn't really bother with that because, again, it's simplified, it's stylized. You don't really need that. That adds unnecessary realism. You gotta kind of think about in your brain what parts of realism are important and what parts aren't. And then you got the open mouth, which actually makes it so that her face is finally conveying something. You can actually believe this facial expression, and she's got like some details in the eyes, and she's got like the mascara on top of her eye, and it's pink because it's Rekka, and she always wears pink. And yeah, I just really like this one. I really like how this one looks, and you can kind of see just like how much has changed since then. And the cool thing is it happens fairly naturally, because you want to go out of your way every once in a while to kind of go through your drawings like this. Like every couple months or so, I will do this where I go back through a handful of my old drawings like this and kind of analyze what it is that doesn't work about the old ones, but what it does work about the new ones, so that I make sure I'm always going in the right direction and not repeating my old mistakes. And the difference here is I actually recorded myself doing it this time. So yeah, that's that, I guess. The reason these are all Rekkas is because I've drawn a lot of Rekkas, and I think it would be the easiest way of quickly kind of demonstrating a lot of the changes and stuff that I've taken throughout the past few years of drawing. And I think it's something that really embodies the channel pretty well for the 100th video. I'll be very surprised if anyone actually bothers watching this one, so if you have, I am thankful for that. And it's important when going back and analyzing your art and stuff, you do have a kind of theme that really fits it together, like with this, how they're all Rekkas, so they're all a similar art style and they're all in similar poses and everything, because it makes it easy to analyze. And like I said, taking on too much at once can kind of be overwhelming, and you kind of refuse to take it all in at once. So yeah, if you learned anything at all about art from that, then that's cool. I'm really happy about that. But even if you didn't, hopefully this was an entertaining thing to go up, and I guess I'll see you later with some more videos.